and I was here to make the announcement. Greece is already given an amount of approximately 500 million euros. It took some time for the Greek government to start absorbing this fund because there were some necessary legislative procedures that were going a bit late. Now the money is here, so Greece is fully supported and helped by the European Commission. Now, as far as the NGOs role is already different. We heard recently that the Greek government requested the triggering of the emergency mechanism. This money had nothing to do with my portfolio. It was my colleague, Commissioner Dimitris, who is in charge of that. Actually, this money are given to countries that are really in need in order to address the difficult issues like this, and especially humanitarian crisis. So, 700 million euros have been allocated for that. 100 million were given from us, from my portfolio, if you want, in order to put some money there, real money, because the rest has to be collected by the other members of the European Union. But the NGOs are also very different. We have a good cooperation with them. The responsibility to handle the migration crisis in all countries is in the hands and within the competence of member states. The same thing is for security issues. So it is very clear. Europe is here. Europe is helping. Europe is supporting. Europe has already given this huge amount of money. It was up to the Greek government to set up much earlier the hotspots. It took some time, but now they are there. They are fully operational. All migrants or refugees are fingerprinted, identified, registered. They are put in the Eurodac, and so the relocation scheme can start immediately. The problem is how do you do it? These are member states who do not wish to be part of this relocation scheme, and I spoke about it some minutes ago. So on your question, the answer is very clear. Greece is not alone. Europe is standing by, financially, politically, morally. And we are acknowledging the efforts done by Greece recently. So Greece is part of the solution. But the problem, if it was an easy problem, would have been resolved from the very beginning. Now we are all in the same boat and from the same side. Hopefully things will get better from the moment all these projects are fully implemented. And in the field of implementation, there are still shortcomings and gaps. Let's hope that things will move towards the direction that we all wish to see this issue being addressed in a collective and joint way in a spirit of solidarity and society among member states.
Another question, please.
Again, thank you very much for your presence. I would like to ask if you believe that the recent European terrorist attacks are related to the immigrant refugee crisis. Thank you.
It's a very good question because a lot of people, in a very simplistic way, they try to amalgamate or amalgamate terrorism with migration. The answer is no. I will give you a very tangible example. All the perpetrators of the terrorist acts in Europe were all homegrown. They were not refugees. They were not migrants. So when I mentioned before the problem we are confronted with, especially with the rising of populism, national xenophobia, has to do exactly with that. They try to tell the Europeans that they are threatened by refugees or migrants. No, it's not true. The problem is somewhere else. The integration policy in Europe has failed. It's questionable. Because the question is very simple. 5 of these young people who are born, bred in countries like Belgium and France, one day they took their guns and they turned them against their homeland. So, this is the response. Okay, that's enough. permitted this to happen. It is very, very clear. And on the other hand, I got the opportunity to tell you something else. Because public opinion is a country. They cannot distinguish refugees from migrants. Who are the ones and who are the others? Refugees are the ones who are in need, in genuine need of international protection. The ones who flee persecution, dictatorship, terrorism. And the ones who come mainly through the Greek corridor, we can call it like this, they are mostly refugees. And it's exactly the people who want to flee from terrorism, because their societies are terrorized. You know what are the practices of the so-called Islamic State. You know what they do. They don't give a territory. They integrate the local society, they terrorize them. So they want to flee. And they are here. They come to Europe. And the fact that they have chosen Europe as a destination means how successful is the European project. But we must not confuse the one with the other, or amalgamate before. Now, as far as migrants are concerned, it is true to say that in the very beginning we had a load of irregular migrants coming over to Europe, mainly through Italy. People from the sub-Saharan area, from Northern Africa. They must know, and we are very clear on that, irregular migrants will go back home. They will be returned. If they want to come one day to Europe, they must follow legal ways. That's why we have taken the initiative very soon to present the proposal on legal migration. Europe did not have any experience of migration before. Only some member states, France, Germany, Belgium. We all, the rest, we are somehow exporting migrants. All these great nations like Canada, Australia, United States, they are made of European migrants. And some of them, they were irregular at that time. If you don't know that Silicon Valley actually started by irregular migrants that arrived in the United States. So, we have to put rules. And these rules must be respected. Otherwise, they will be sent back. That's why I mentioned before the return policy. So it's very clear what we do right now in Europe. This experience we are living has pushed Europe to adopt a more comprehensive, holistic migration policy. And I can tell you that this Commission anticipated. As you know, we started on January 1st of the year 2015. In only 4 months' time, we adopted the European Agenda on Migration. In 6 months' time, we had the 10 points action plan in form, and then the relegation of 17. Now it's up to member states, as I said, to implement. And this is the challenging element that we are all confronted with right now.
May I transpose the question in comment?
Sure.
It is true that most terrorists are homebred European nationals, but most of them have gone to the ISIS lands and came back to Europe via the immigration routes.
Some of them.
Well, most of them, or some of them. Isn't that a problem?
Of course it is a problem. That's why we need the hotspots. What's the role of hotspots? All these people who come either to Italy or to Greece or to Africa. Because now we have new routes. Smugglers are very cunning people. They have started diverting routes. I was in Finland just 1 week ago to talk with the Finnish government. And we don't know that 1,000 refugees crossed illegally the borders between Russia and Finland. We're in Lapland. The smugglers took them there. I was in Albania just 1 week ago to talk with the Albanian government and provide them with our experience, with our help, with our support. Because given the fact that the borders between Fyrom and Greece are closed, I'm sure the smugglers have other plans in their mind. They might divert them either through Bulgaria or Albania. So we're getting prepared for that. But as far as your question is concerned, yes, some of them They came back by just crossing the Aegean Sea. We know that one of the perpetrators of the terrorist acts in Paris, the well-known Charlie Hebdo events, he was identified in Laos. But now another question is coming. Do the European countries cooperate in the field of security? Do they exchange information? Do they exchange intelligence? The answer is no. Since I'm in charge of that, I can tell you that recently we had tough discussions in Brussels because we try to convince member states not to think the way the deep state is thinking, but start sharing information. Because if they don't share information, we can do nothing. We upgraded the role of Europe. Europe is based in The Hague. The infrastructure and the equipment, the experience of Europol is of great value. Just 3 months ago, I inaugurated the counter-terrorism center within Europol. And 5 months ago, we opened the so-called radicalization awareness note that goes close to what you asked me before. Why all these people are radicalized? Yes, they're homegrown, they're home-bred, but one day they were radicalized. They went back to Syria to be trained and come back here. All these perpetrators of the terrorist acts in Paris could have been identified and arrested. They crossed 3 countries of the Balkans going to the sea and 4 member states of the European Union. They arrived in Brussels, they set up their headquarters, and they did what they did. So the answer is clear. More information exchange, more intelligence exchange, and let me tell you, more trust between member states.
Mr. Muscatara.
I just wanted to ask, what is the difficulty in returning what you call irregular migrants back home faster, more expeditious? I mean, we know that right now in Greece there are like...
Very good question, very good question. Because these countries must accept their nationals. They don't want them. As simple as it sounds. I was in Pakistan, I was in Pakistan just 1 month ago. I had very good discussion with the government of Pakistan. And the day after, there was a very fast return operation from Greece to Pakistan. And when I arrived in Brussels, I made a report to the college, spoke with President Juncker, and said, so let's see what they're going to do. They refused to take them back. The plane never took off from us. Why? They said they should, the Greek authorities should have told us earlier. So they produce obstacles, they make obstacles in order not to do it. So readmission agreements must be respected. Greece has signed a readmission agreement with Turkey since 2012. Doesn't work. Turkey, from what you should know, they take back only Turkish nationals. But the hundreds of thousands, if you cross Turkey, they're not Turkish nationals. I was in Morocco recently. Moroccans do not want to take back their nationals. And we know that right now, only in Greece, there are Moroccans on the borders between Greece and France. The same somewhere in Greece, because some of them, from the moment they know that they will be sent back home, they abscond. They disappear. You can find it everywhere, not only in Greece, but also in Europe. So, the problem is there, and the answer is one. We have not only to sign the initial agreements, but also to use other leverages in order to force some countries to accept their people, their citizens, their nationals. And we have some tools in our hand. Actually, that was the idea behind the initiative I had proposed to the Commission to convene the Valletta meeting, the Valletta summit. In the beginning, it was the idea to meet on the ministerial level, but then it was upgraded to the level of the leadership of all these countries. Leaders of Europe with leaders of Northern Africa, because the problem is mainly there. So right now we work on that. So regular migrants must go back home. And as I explained before, they can find one way the door open to Europe, but by respecting the laws and the rules of the European agenda on migration, of the European policy on migration.
Can I add to that something? There are many European member states who have bilateral financial agreements in those
Development
countries which refuse repatriation. What does the Commission do about that?
I answered before. I told you we have leverages in our hands.
Yeah.
It's not only the bilateral relations between some member states of the European Union, but also the European Union. The European Union is a major donor in terms of development of this country. And
Why
we have-
don't
Yeah, that's
we
what we
use
do.
the
It
leverage?
is exactly what we are doing. We tell them, keep working with you, supporting you, helping you, but from your side, you must fulfill your commitments according to what we have agreed.
Mr. Tarikas.
Commissioner, we had this debate at the EPP Congress in Marseille a few years ago, whether the repatriation agreements need to become a union competence. Because on a member state level, we've seen the experience of Greece, we were very much unable to enforce them. So should we discuss at a European level to pass the competence from member states to the Commission to have a central agreement of the Union with this country,
No.
amalgamating also the issues
No.
of development?
No, Mr. Draghi, it's not possible because this competence is a national competence. The European Union is showing the way. At this level, we all agree. And immediately, whatever is agreed in Brussels is becoming a national policy. It is up to member states to implement. Some member states can do it, some member states cannot do it. But if they cannot do it, we are here to help them. Unfortunately, let me be a bit outspoken. Europe has not become a federal system yet. And if Europe does not decide one day, instead of succumbing to the breakdown development and not adopt a breakthrough policy in fulfilling and completing its political union, things will be very difficult in the field where decisions are made and so there are some other issues coming out from our experience now. My position is very clear. More Europe at all levels. That's why I propose the creation of the European Borders and Coast Guard. This has to do with what we said before. It will be the competence of this European Borders and Coast Guard to protect the European borders. Because right now, if a member state proceeds to what we call pushback, it is against international law. It is against the International Convention of Geneva of 1952. So, it is not as simple as it sounds sometimes. But we have to find a solution. And for me, the only way to move ahead is on all these issues to find and implement European solutions. But I think we have to ask the students here. Whether they want to ask questions.
Commissioner, I'm not clear on what the role of NATO is. Is it to stop the flow? Is it to rescue? And if it does rescue, where does it send these refugees or migrants back? To Turkey or Greece?
First of all, NATO's role is not what comes out from your question. I negotiated with NATO in order to reach this agreement. It's a sort of operational plan. But first, the role of NATO, please. It is not to deploy the NATO's fleet and intercept the enemy. It is to support Frontex. Frontex's role is very clear. Yes, protection of European borders, but at the same time, save lives. In the spirit I described before. It doesn't work properly. We have some shortcomings there. And we have to come back to see how NATO can be helpful to Frontex. At the same time, as I said before, we work in order to finalize all necessary procedures by the end of June and have fully operational the European Borders and Coast Guard. When the moment comes, NATO will not have any role to play. There are also some political diplomatic issues in the area, and NATO is aware of that. But one key issue, that NATO's role is not what it was somehow presented in the newspapers. Because NATO, as an alliance, is defined also by the enemy. And refugees and migrants are not enemies. They have to be treated in a human and decent way. And this is something that the public opinion must understand. Most of us here are descendants of refugees, do you know that? Also in Europe. We have forgotten all about it. But for the ones who do not read history, it's not the best guide to explain today the reality we are confronted with. So NATO's role is not as it has been perceived in the beginning. NATO will not operate in defense and military terms. We are supportive and auxiliary help to fronts.
A different question from an educator who works at the Department of UNESCO. I would like to ask you, you know that Human Rights Watch says that millions of refugees children right now are out of school for many, many years. Under international law, the children of the refugees need to have access into schools. I wanted to ask you, what do the Commission and the Greek government right now do in order to ensure the same inclusion for the students of the refugee children in the schools? And also, who and how is preparing right now the Greek teachers to actually face this great challenge this September in their classrooms?
I will answer your question on the first part, because I don't represent the Greek government here. I will tell you what the Commission is doing. You know, we have unaccompanied minors, not only members of families. And when I spoke before about the funds which are allocated, I was very clear. All the money go exactly in order to help these families, and especially the unaccompanied minors. We are morally and politically bound to provide the refugees in general, their families and for the children, with the necessary support in terms of healthcare, of education, of shelter, and decent conditions of living. So, this is what the Commission is doing. This is why the Commission has allocated all these funds. But coming to the other part of the question, it's up to Member States to implement it.
Hello, thank you very much for your speech. I would like to ask you what kind of problem the rise of nationalism in the member states brings to the reallocation and the assimilation of refugees into the European member states.
First of all, let me give you my own definition about nationalism and patriotism. In patriotism, we love your country. In nationalism, we hate the country of the other. Let's start from that. Because they have already started having border restrictions because of the refugee flows. I was in the, let's say, northern part of southwestern Europe, the Balkans, just a month ago. There were frictions at the borders. They started closing borders, erecting fences. And the narrative of the populist and nationalist parties within their countries is disorienting the thoughts and the feelings of the people. They try to discover enemies among refugees and migrants. They hate them. They foster hatred. No, it has nothing to do with the democratic values upon which Europe is built. So this is the problem. And they gain ground within their countries. You see populist and national movements becoming more and more powerful because of the refugee crisis. They exploit this phenomenon, and instead of articulating a responsible and a humane political path, they do exactly the opposite. I was surprised to see in democratic countries of Central Europe the populist powers to gain ground. And where are they going to lead Europe? Back to its dark past. Some countries believe that by going back to the period before the Second World War, they can do something. No. They will destroy their countries. They will revive all rivalries. And Europe has this bad experience. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning of my remarks, the ones they decide after they had lived the tragedy of the Second World War to put the basis of a more cohesive, inclusive generations do not read history. Marx said, I'm not a Marxist, but I will quote him. He said, history repeats itself. No, it's not right. Men repeat history because they don't repeat, they don't read it. And this is the problem right now there. I don't want to mention names here. It's not my job. And I have to cooperate with their governments. And we try to convince them. But I can tell you that the bigger threat of the European project is the rising of popular nationalism. And your generation has a role to play in that, to defend the values upon which Europe was built. Otherwise, your generation, and the generation of my children, and maybe ours, will be the victims of a new adventure. And we must not permit things to go towards this direction.
Given that no European country borders with Syria, and that all Syrian refugees before entering Europe have been at least one non-EU state in which they were safe, are they refugees or immigrants?
Syrians, refugees. Because they want to flee dictatorship, they want to flee terror. I explained it before. And they must be treated as refugees. And the ones who come through Greece, they are mostly Syrians.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm sorry.
So,
excuse me. But one of my classmates would actually.
yeah, I cannot hear you, sorry.
Oh, sorry. As from the fact that they have already been in another state, this means that they are in a safe environment. Let's say Turkey is not actually in war right now. So are they considered refugees or immigrants from the very fact that they were not actually in a war country?
I'll tell you. Right now, Turkey has approximately 3 million refugees in camps. Turkey is qualified as a safe country. They are there. But they also have in their mind to go somewhere else. And they want to go to Germany and Sweden. And they want to cross Greece, of course. How can they go there? Some of them, they are guided by smugglers. I talked about it in the beginning. And we must do our best in order to crack down on their networks. They are ruthless criminals. They exploit their wish to go somewhere. So it is a multifaceted situation. It's not as simple as it looks. But, on your question, which is similar, I understand, what are they? They are refugees. Doesn't matter whether they are in Turkey. In Turkey, the system is totally different. In Europe, for instance, we have set up the hotspots in order to fingerprint, to register, and identify them. And to see who are the ones who are entitled to international protection and who are not. As far as the second category is concerned, they have to go back. Give an explanation for how to try to return these people. But as far as the refugees are concerned, doesn't matter where they are, they have the refugee status. Asylum is a right according to international law. From the moment someone is qualified as an asylum seeker, as a refugee, he can be a refugee all around the world, especially within the countries that have signed the Geneva Agreement.
Two more questions, please, because the Commissioner has to go to Georgia. He has to go in one piece.
Hello, Mr. Avramopoulos. Thank you for coming here. I am a young student, and probably I'm in the generation that you said you want to protect the values of the European nation. My question will not be complicated. At the start of your presentation, you so passionately said that the Europe stands with us, supports us politically, economically, and
When you say us, you mean Greece.
What?
When you say us, you mean Greece.
Yes, okay, but I consider all students, especially from the European nation, that the generation you said. As I said, you at the start of